moment? How will we be remembered? Look at the opportunities before us.
This election really isn't about the left versus the right. It's about we the people choosing our government and the choice between freedom versus tyranny.
Nobody has a chronic disease burden like we have. Why are we allowing this to happen to our children? Ultimately, the only thing that will save our country is if we choose to love our kids more than we hate each other.
What is going on here is deeper than politics. It is deeply spiritual. We are being called to rise above the hatred and the fear and the evil.
We need to remember above and beyond that we must love our neighbors, that we must treat other people as we hope to be treated.
You want to be a rebel? You want to be a hippie? You want to stick it to the man? Show up on your college campus and try calling yourself a conservative.
America is going to reach heights that it has never seen before. The future is going to be amazing!
Don't you want healthy children? Don't you want a president that's going to make America healthy again?
I come to you today as a former Democrat. I will be a first-time Trump voter tonight.
The people dreamed this country, and it's the people who are making America great again. Making rock and roll.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Audit the Vote Newsroom. I'm your host, Toni Shoup. We have a very special show for you this Wednesday evening. Yes, I did go back to the old promo video until Joel gets a chance to. He's working on a promo video specifically for this podcast. So please like, share, and subscribe on whatever platform you're watching us on. And also don't forget to hit the bell so that you get notified when we go live so that you don't miss. If you are as entertained as we are with this program, you don't miss a minute of it. So I just love that. I don't think that video will ever get old for me. We are going to do an intro video because we do get dinged on certain platforms since it's technically Kid Rock's music and we didn't put the video together, and we are monetized on a couple of platforms, and so I guess there's all kind of copyright stuff. So that's why we're doing a new video, but that one is just I just can't get enough of it. So good to see everybody. Dr. Frank is in the chat already saying hello. Penny and Babbage, good to see you guys. Like I said, like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell so that you get notified when we go live. We got a ton of stuff to cover. Current events, things are happening at rapid pace. I think we are, 9 days into the new Trump administration, and it feels like every day is just a whirlwind of good, some not so good. A lot of stuff I almost sometimes don't like how well I know the Constitution. I'm no guru by any means, but I know so much more now than before 2020 that sometimes you kind of wonder, should we be doing this? I don't know, because the other side could just get in the next time around and do the exact same thing, and we have to think about the next generation. So we have a ton of stuff to cover everything from the RFK confirmation hearings today that sound like they're on ice for now. Pete Hegseth got confirmed last week, which is really good news. But before we do that, actually, the first thing we're going to do is pull in my very special guest, who we happen to go way, way back with. Joel, you did it too soon. I was going to tell the whole story how we met, but that's okay. He's here now. So I guess it's no secret. We were promoting that.
Go ahead, tell the story.
We were promoting that we had Dr. Frank on here tonight. So I guess that's no secret. We go way back, Dr. Frank and I. He's actually from, I believe, Ohio. I don't want to say Dayton, Ohio. I'll screw it up. Or is it Dayton? No.
South of Columbus.
South of Columbus, Ohio. I met Dr. Frank in May of 2021 when we were still really new to this entire arena. And I have no doubt now, looking back, that it was divine intervention. And I wanted to share the story of it because now you can see it so much clearer than when we were in the moment of it. So I was at a restaurant in Pittsburgh called the Cracked Egg. That was the only restaurant in Allegheny County that stood up to Governor Wolf's edicts and mandates and stayed open when he insisted you close because of this deadly pandemic that 99% of the population was recovering just fine from. And the owner refused to force her employees to wear masks, which made her a target. I was there, Karen and I together, when we were still hosting our Constitution classes together. We were promoting our Constitution classes and getting signatures on our petition for an audit of the 2020 election. And when I was done promoting the class, I had a guy that was there sit down with me and say, I've got to introduce you to a friend of mine. It was really kind of secretive. Oh, there it is, the Cracked Egg, Kim Wagon at the Cracked Egg. So if you want to support a Patriot-owned restaurant business in Pittsburgh area, these guys have taken a huge beating, tons of fines. I don't know what the latest is, kind of where they ended up with all of this, but definitely only one in Pittsburgh area that was willing to stand up against the mandates, and certainly paid dearly for it. So he sat me down and said, he was kind of like, I don't want to say not shady. Shady's not the right word. Just obtuse about who Dr. Frank was and what he was doing, because a lot of the election stuff that he was working on wasn't public yet. So he sat down and said, I got this guy, he's doing COVID modeling right now, but there's things that are going to come out about the election, and with what you guys are doing with your petition, you've got to connect. But it was all about the COVID modeling at first, which actually interested me, Dr. Frank, because I was one of those early mask fighters who called BS on the whole thing right from the get-go, and not BS from the COVID doesn't exist or it's not a real threat, but just the whole stay inside, you can't hug your neighbors, don't bring people over your house. I just knew that was a crock pretty early on. And so when he talked about you with the numbers, I was actually trying to wake up my friends and family on my Facebook account, my small sphere of influence that I had at the time. And I was getting shredded online because I had no medical background, because and the media has since slandered the two of us to kingdom come, of course. I'm a lunatic conspiracy theorist and you're a national election denier. Meanwhile, they don't print any of the positive stuff that would give us real credibility, our real backgrounds. I have an engineering degree, mechanical engineer on paper from Penn State University, and I worked as a design change implementation engineer in the nuclear industry right out of college. Heaven forbid they would print that.
No wonder we talk so well. I forgot that you had a degree in engineering. Go ahead.
I do. I'm an engineer, but only on paper. So I was trying to wake people up, but again, I was getting shredded because I had no medical background, and I was looking at graphs and sharing numbers and trying to show people, like, why are we terrified of this? 99% of people are surviving. This is insane.
More than that.
So I loved when I did start to find your stuff. I was very interested because I finally found somebody with credibility that I could share their data. It wasn't just me on the CDC website or on the Pennsylvania Department of State trying to explain to people there was no reason to be afraid of this. I finally had your stuff. And then, so when you and I finally connected, the backstory that you may or may not know that I never told you is that, looking back, I guess what we did, me, Karen, and Jamie at the time, was successful in that we started a movement and woke up the state of Pennsylvania. But when we were in the thick of it, in the middle of it, it was incredibly frustrating. So when particularly when I reached out to you, I remember having a really frustrating day because we were really getting hit pretty hard from every angle. No elected official wanted, other than Doug Mastriano and a handful of others in the House, wanted to help us or work with us. We were getting stiff-armed everywhere we went. And yes, the signatures were taking off, but nowhere near like we thought they would. Not knowing what to expect, I really thought we'd have hundreds of thousands of signatures within a few months. And lo and behold, we go to April to do a rally in Harrisburg on the steps of our capital, our state capital, with 15,000 signatures, which I know sounds good now, but at the time it felt like we were beating our heads against a wall. And the day I reached out to you, it was one of those particularly super frustrating days. And I think it was through Facebook Messenger. I can't remember the nitty gritty details. I just know when we got on the phone, it felt like kindred spirits. And you did tell me a few things that were somewhat disturbing, like I was probably going to have to go to jail and take my elections back at the local level, but we're not going to. I remember you saying to me, well, do you wear a mask? No. Why don't you wear a mask? Because it's stupid. well, then that's how we're going to have to take our elections back. We're just not going to do it the way that the state wants us to do it. And then when you get thrown in jail, we'll call Mike Lindell and he'll bail you out. And haha, we had a good little laugh about that. But come to find out, Dr. Frank was that was April of 2021. And I got to say, he was not entirely wrong in that approach. Now, thankfully, none of us have had to go to jail, but he was not wrong in the approach that we are going to have to take. We're just going to have to take it back ourselves. So with that, Dr. Frank, I'll give you the floor a little bit to do an intro. I know you have some videos that we want Joel to pull up, but thank you for all your support and for taking the time, even this evening. All these years, believe it's been 4 years, almost 4 years since we met.
Almost 4 years now, yes.
And I'm just thankful that you stayed in the fight with us and looking forward. He is I can announce this now. He's officially a board member for Audit the Vote PA. He is an official member of our board.
I'm honored to serve.
And we're honored to have him. And I think he's going to bring a whole fresh perspective from a national grassroots activist landscape that nobody else really has that I would be able to get on the board. So I think that's going to be really good. But that being said, Dr. Frank, I'll let you share your little intro.
Yeah, let me connect a little before we go on. Let me connect something.
Please do.
Because I was new in the election stuff as well. I mean, I was very experienced in COVID. And I was publishing the COVID data all over the country. I had 150,000 followers on my Facebook page. I mean, when I would go live in Ohio, I had 5,000 live views. Okay. And I mean, I was very popular in Ohio. In fact, we got the health director fired because I showed that they were lying about the numbers. And that was a big deal. Now, and I love that. I didn't know that backstory you told me about the guy who said, you got to talk to this guy. He's under the radar. And it's because what happened was I was posting like all the time on COVID and I had 150,000 people following me and everybody's like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And then I just suddenly stopped. And there are two reasons I stopped. One, Facebook took down my page. That was big. And I thought they took down my page because I'm a data guy. I was showing the statistics of vaccine risk versus vaccine benefit. And so that way I was helping people make rational decisions. For example, essentially 0 children are dying of COVID, okay? Essentially 0 children are catching COVID. So therefore, essentially 0 children are spreading it. And we already had demographic studies throughout Europe proving the kids weren't even spreading it. So when people were saying, gee, should we vaccinate our kids? I was saying, here's the evidence. And I was showing the statistics and I was showing the data. And I even quoted, there's a school here in Columbus, in Ohio, that has 600 students, 300 autistic children and 300 normal children. And not one of their children caught COVID, and they never wore masks because you can't get masks on COVID kids, and they never shut down. They went to school every day. And the whole point that I was making to people is there's a risk curve. Any vaccine at all is risky. I mean, you can't give a scoop of peanut butter to 1 million people and have everybody get away from it alive. I mean, every vaccine is
to life, right?
Exactly. But there's an acceptable level of risk. And so I was graphing what that was. And by a weird coincidence, I had been traveling the country for 10 years before that, teaching people about vaccines for Rotary International because of polio. We were eradicating the world of polio. So, I mean, I was like in this amazing nexus of crossing themes. And when they took down my page, at the same time, I stopped posting on my personal pages and all of my other pages because I told people I can't talk right now. I'm doing something else that's way more important. And it was the election stuff. And I couldn't tell anybody at the time because I was working with your legislature. I was one of 6 people working on, and man, oh man, we found so much fraud. We've talked about it before. We don't need to go into the details, but in general, my starting experience in Pennsylvania was a tremendous learning experience for me. It was learning on multiple levels. First of all, I discovered how they were cheating the elections, and that was through the voter rolls. And the second thing I discovered is that they weren't going to fix it. And that was a real eye-opener to me. I mean, I'm a physicist. I'm a scientist. You give data to people, you give them evidence, and they're going to go, oh, no, we got to fix the problem. No, they're not going to fix the problem. And wait a minute. Pennsylvania is a Republican majority. don't they care that their guy lost? And here I'm giving you the evidence that you got a problem. So that was kind of an eye opener for me. That was like one of my first political lessons was with you guys. But I didn't mean to get too far afield there, but
No, here's my comment. When you and I met, I wasn't quite there yet. So you were already there. I wasn't there yet. I still kept thinking we get enough signatures and pound the pavement and make enough noise. We have some allies. They will do something.
In fairness to you, I don't think I was quite there yet either. I was there with Pennsylvania, but I wasn't. I was still like assuming Florida and North Carolina and Ohio, and I even met with the Secretary of State of Ohio. People don't know this widespread. You and I have talked before about how I worked with Louisiana and we exposed the Secretary of State there, but most people didn't hear the story about Ohio. Later, just a few months after you and I met, we hacked into the election in Ohio in Lake County during the election. Okay, we hacked into the election during the election, documented the whole thing. We did it at the request of the county officials in Lake County, Ohio. And so when we presented all that evidence to LaRose, you could tell my mindset was still thinking we would give it to LaRose and say, look, see, we're proving to you your elections are totally hackable, totally manipulatable from the outside. I was assuming that, come on, Ohio is Republican. They voted 8.5% majority for Trump. They're going to go, oh my goodness, we got to address this. They covered up the whole thing. In fact, LaRose sicked the FBI on me, okay? Now, we didn't do anything illegal. Everything we did was with licensed white hat hackers at the request of the county officials, everything. So I was, that's why I say in fairness to you, I was still learning a lot. I don't think
Did the media cover this at all? I remember you telling me now that you're saying it again about Ohio, but did you get any media coverage?
Oh, no, the media, no. They won't report any of this. Just like, by the way, they didn't report the fact, and you and I we talked earlier today, we want to talk about with the illegal aliens. I'll talk about that. Just like they don't want to cover that either, even though it's proven. So anyway, I don't think I really was caught on that I really learned this lesson until the end of the year. You remember Mr. Lindell and I were flying around in his plane getting signatures from AGs around the country. I was shocked how hard it was to get Republican conservative AGs to be willing to sign on to the Supreme Court. That was shocking in itself. And then when formally the Republican National Committee, the RNC, said, you cannot have this lawsuit, I was like, I blew me out of the way. So I think 2021 was my learning year, really. I think I was still believing that somebody somewhere in government would pick up the ball and run with it. But I got to tell you, I've met with dozens now of secretaries of states and AGs, and there's only one good secretary of state in the entire country. And it's the guy, his name is Chuck Gray. He's in Wyoming, and he's got his act together, and he's making good progress. I've met with him multiple times in person. He's good. But the rest of them, there aren't any good ones. They all run for cover. You pay a political price if you address this problem. And there's a lot of vested interest in keeping control of your elections. Think about it. Since when does government willingly give up power? And right now, every election is being controlled at the state level. There isn't a single state where it's controlled locally anymore. It's all government controlled. And are they going to say, oh, yeah, we agree. We need to put it back into the hands of the people? Yeah, fat chance. We're going to have to fight to get that back. But it took, in fairness, I think it took me the year. I just want to say one more thing before we move on, though. You called me later that year. I think it was in June, and you were in tears. I'll never forget this call. It was a big call for me because it helped me connect dots too. You're like, Dr. Frank, we should have just done what you told us to do at the beginning, which was to stick with looking for fraud and canvassing in our communities. You said because we did all those signatures, we delivered them to the count, and nothing's going to happen. And you were just tears. And that wasn't an I told you so. That was a learning curve that we were going through.
That's when they hijacked. Senator Mastriano was gonna send at least subpoenas from his Senate committee so that we could get access to the machines and the router, all that stuff. And they yanked him out of his chair position, put someone else in. They hijacked everything. So it felt like, I remember calling you crying. I had other volunteers that were calling Seth crying. Like we were we just worked so hard, and they literally just hijacked it. And that was the start of the turn of the corner for me to go, this is local. That's where I started. Education is key because people don't even know the Constitution. And we're going to have to fix this at the bottom, lowest, most local level because nobody else gives a crap.
You taught me that, and I quoted you all over the country, and I still have slides in every one of my presentations. Education is key, but the fix is local. And I think you and I were learning that together at the same time. I don't think, I was Mr. Wise Guy. I think we both had to learn. And by the way, that would be a great way to go into the next part of this conversation because right now, I mean, it's awesome. Trump is awesome. Okay. He is in there, and dude, the guy has a vendetta. All right. He is going to do, I guess Nellie's going to bed. She turned off the light. He has got enemies in his sights, and he's going to take them out one after another. Man, this guy, and I remember there's all this talk about, there's this conspiracy where Trump is really in charge of the military and everything. Remember all that stuff? You hear about that? I had meals with the guy. I'm sitting across the table from him, and I'm talking with him, and he is not saying, oh, yeah, I'm in control. Don't worry about it. No, he's pissed off. He is bitter. And I never thought they'd let that guy get back in office because he's got his machete out, dude, and he's going to he's going to get his revenge. And he's going to go one after another, chop, 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 and he's doing it. Now, that's good because he's going to be remedying a lot of the crap that we've had to put up with 4 years. But it's also bad. Here's why it's bad. 2 reasons it's bad. First of all, I talked about you earlier today, constitutionally, this is not the way our country is supposed to be working. What are we going to do? Every 4 years, the next president undoes everything that the previous president done and then puts a whole bunch more executive orders into place? That's not the way our country is supposed to be run. It's supposed to be a constitutional republic. We're supposed to be making laws, and our legislatures are supposed to be representing us. We're a representative form of government. So even though I like it that he's fixing the mess, I don't like it that this is what's required to fix the mess.
Yep.
That I don't like. Okay, now the second thing that I don't like about it is now, guess what? Everybody's sitting on their hands watching Trump fix everything. Okay, folks, anything Trump does cannot have long-standing permanence because they're all executive orders, and anything he does can be undone by the next president. And as we can talk about it more in the time we're together tonight if you want, but I've shown I've gone over it in great detail in several of my presentations. I think we're going to lose 2026. I think he's going to lose the House in 2026. So there's a very short window of here for us, we the people, and we the people have to step up and we have to start being the government again. The problem is that we are totally out of practice. And you're way ahead of me on this category. You and Karen were already doing the constitutional classes and everything. And
which reminds me, Joel, put that graphic up because this would be a good time for people to
good time to advertise. Yes.
Scan the graphic and join. It's not too late to join my newest class, Biblical Citizenship in Modern America, Thursday nights, 8 p.m. We just had week 1 last week. You can get caught up and for free get access to all the videos. There's no charge. So Joel, put that graphic up as Dr. Frank continues to talk.
By the way, it's just great to be with you. I've been working really hard. For 4 years, I was on the road almost constantly. And right now I've been home now. I've done a couple of trips, but pretty much at home, and I'm catching up on all kinds of stuff. So I'm missing my friends. So it's nice to be with you. It's nice.
You were saying about the Constitution, how Karen and I were teaching classes, and I'm probably not technically ahead of you because you've done a lot of learning too. But thank you.
Well, I'm a quick study, right? I mean, I'm an academic guy. I love, and boy, oh boy, I used to see all my books I've been reading over here. I got, but I've been focusing more on books like Blueprint for Revolution, Rules for Radicals, Art of War, because I've been studying revolutions. And I think what started me on that is during 2021, I read a book by Eric Metaxas. It was a biography of Martin Luther. And it blew me away because as I'm reading the book and he's talking about all the different players in the revolution there, that was the Reformation in the church. It's like, oh, that's Dr. Clements. Oh, that's Seth Keshel. Oh, that's me. Oh, that's Toni. In other words, history repeats itself. We are in the middle of a revolution right now. Okay. And and it's amazing to see that all the same things are happening. And so that kind of woke me up. And so then I read the book by Alinsky, Rules for Radicals. And the whole, people always think that that's because it was Hillary's like primer. And she did her doctoral dissertation on it. But the first third of the book is not about left, right, conservative, liberal, Christian, atheist. It's about what revolutions are like. What is the structure of revolutions? They all have the same structure, and who wins are the people who follow certain rules. And so that made me go, wait a minute, we're in a war right now. We're in a revolution war for this country, okay? We're not going to win unless we follow these rules. And so that kind of got me going, and I read The Art of War, and holy mackerel, did I learn a lot. And I realized all the mistakes I'd been making before in my approaches. Because anyway, so we were in a learning process, and
I got to put those books on my radar.
In the end, the true solution, you're right, is local, and people need to wake up, not rely on Trump. Trump is valuable. Oh, but man, I love the guy, and it's nice having somebody from the top pounding down on the hammer. But we have to provide the nails. So we got to get going on the local stuff, and we only have a limited window. And in a quick way of summarizing that, I think we have 1 year to take back our elections. If we don't do it within 1 year, we're done, because that's when the primaries are going to be. And the primaries are where we really lose our elections, not in the generals. So anyway, I think I rambled on enough, but we went through learning together for sure.
We sure did. And you and I talked too before this 2024 election. I mean, in the summer, we were probably, I don't want to say negative about it, but we were realistic because of everything that we saw. And we were both shocked that it turned out the way that it did, because
I'm delighted.
Yes, delighted. But several real conversations where I hung up thinking, whew, we better brace ourselves a couple of times, and we might end up in, concentration camps together.
It could easily happen. Yes. Think about it. They put all the J6ers in jail.
They did.
I have, when people question me about the J6 and say, oh, you're just a conspiracy guy and whatnot, I bring up this story because this is a direct story I have direct connection to. It's very simple to understand. A friend I met in California on one of my trips, he spent 3 weeks in solitary confinement because he attended J6. After 3 weeks in solitary confinement, which is torture, the charges were dropped against him and he was released. Now, wait a minute. They took a citizen of the United States. They put him in solitary confinement, which is torture. For 3 weeks, he didn't see one other soul, never left that little room. And then they realized, we don't have anything on this guy, and they released him. That is our country. Okay, and so we cannot continue to have that situation in our country. And I think if Trump hadn't been elected, I think we were just slippery slope right down there. And so I'm delighted.
Totally agree. So with that said, let's get into some of the nitty gritty of data and statistics, because I know Vico and you have worked together before, and you might have a couple graphs you have to show. But Joel, cue up the one that I sent you. I know I sent you a ton of stuff today. Joel's a saint.
I'm anxious to see this one. This is the one from Vico?
This is the one from Vico. So Vico did a study because, there's...
I love Vico. He's awesome.
Numerous activists running around the country saying that their efforts to chase mail ballots and to register voters was what sealed the deal in Pennsylvania specifically. And I'm not taking anything away from anybody that worked really hard, because all those people did work hard. But what the data now shows that Vico found is that we, in fact, had less added Republicans to our voter rolls in this last election cycle between the years 2023 and 2024, which is that red curve you're seeing to the far right. than we did in the previous 2 presidential election cycles. So November 15 to 2016, we had 319,525 Republicans added to the voter rolls. In the same period of time, Vico took a snapshot around November 2015, November 2016. That's the difference in Republicans that were added to the rolls between November 2015, November 2016 in that time frame. Then he did 19 to 20, and you'll see even less Republicans were added to the rolls in that same snapshot of time from November 2019 to 2020. And then, which is most revealing, in 2023 to 4, an even smaller number of Republicans were added to the voter roll. So this makes it glaringly obvious, in my opinion, based on what Vico is telling me. And I think, Dr. Frank, you've looked at the numbers too to see that there is absolutely no way that just registering voters and chasing mail-in ballots contributed to President Trump's win in Pennsylvania. It becomes glaringly obvious when you see the numbers, because if it did, how is that possible when we were, historically speaking, registering less Republicans as the presidential election years went on? The truth is the voter rolls are a disaster. They're wildly inaccurate. And anybody who's ever run for anything and knocked doors will tell you that, regardless of what side they're on, because it's impossible to deny once you get your list of voters from the GOP and you try to actually get out the vote for your own efforts and start knocking the doors, you'll find yourself how wildly inaccurate they are. So all of that to say, our strategy at Audit the Vote is going to be we are still working on maximizing transparency in the vote counting and reporting process, working to, as best we can within the confines of the law, and there's other groups spearheading these efforts, but to try to get accuracy in our voter rolls, but getting citizens involved with poll watching, with working the polls, judges of elections, because that's the local fix that's ultimately going to take us to a long-term successful strategy of election integrity. The early voting, the mail-in ballots, I get it. The people that say we have to play the game and fight the fight while we have those laws in place, you might be right. It's not a good long-term strategy for election integrity. I think Dr. Frank would agree with me. I will let you take the floor on this. What do you think of this?
I think that if you're doing mail-in balloting, you're throwing away your election. We can't do mail-in balloting. And I'm not alone in that sentiment. Hillary Clinton said so. We have videotape recordings of her saying, "Oh, you want to have no integrity in your elections? Let's have mail-in voting." I mean, it's like, it's absolutely a disaster. Okay, I don't have to make the argument. Anybody who's an expert in election integrity knows that's the case. So you got to get rid of that, and you can't have multiple days of voting. There's reason why we had election day. And this is not rocket science. We don't need to reinvent this wheel. We already know how to run clean elections. So then the question becomes, why don't they want to run clean elections? That's the real question. And the answer is because government never willingly gives up control. Government likes having central control of the elections. They like having the ability to control how things are going. I've actually, you and I haven't talked a lot, but I may not have told you this story, but I've actually been in conversations with legislators sitting there in a room negotiating. We'll give you that county, you give us this county. I'm not kidding. Okay, this is
that's politics. That's literally politics.
And by cheating, and we're going to let you cheat there, and you're going to let us cheat here, and this is how we're going to do it. I'm not kidding you. Okay, this is legit. So, and how can they do that? Because they're in control of the election. If, as you're saying, you have local control, local transparency, none of that stuff can happen. Okay, so as long as we're letting them run the machines and they don't let us in, and letting them run the voter rolls and they don't let us in. By the way, it's interesting in Pennsylvania in particular. You mentioned Vico. I love that guy. In fact, he I think, I'm not taking total credit because he's a talented guy, but I'm the one who recommended him to Cause of America.
And you're the way I found him too. So when I connected you kept telling me you got to get in touch with this kid named Vico, and
he's awesome. But he's the one who brought me into Pennsylvania and introduced me to Kathy Barnett, and he's a smart guy, and he understood my scientific temperament. When I first came into Montgomery County, He said, will you help us with the statistics in the county? And I said, sure, I'd love to. And he started to talk about it. I said, don't tell me anything. Don't tell me anything. Just give me the data and walk away. And he's like, I get it. Because I was using controls, right? I have to control. I don't want to be pre-biased in any way. I want to let the data speak to me, and I want the data to teach me. And I was able to discover stuff because I was coming at it fresh. Nobody had pre-biased me. So anyway, Vico's awesome. Now, he talks about this downward trend. I was aware of that as well because I have the voter rolls for every state in the country, and I'd been tracking them across the country. You know, my pattern was every time I went to a county, I would meet with the local officials, and I would have their data ready to show them. So, of course, I was like, I'm armed for bear. So back in March last year, when the Republican Party said in Turning Point and all these people were saying, oh, yeah, we're going to go out and register Republicans, and we're going to chase their ballots and whatnot, I said, that doesn't make sense to me intuitively. So I sat down and I did all the calculations. And I figured out that the most they would be able to increase the turnout across the country, the most, if they did a fabulous job going out there and registering people and getting and chasing ballots, was 3%. That would be the most they'd be able to do. And so I said, that's a crazy strategy, because if you're able to increase Trump's turnout by 3%, you've got 10 million ballots in the 2020 election that were stuffed that you're up against. The real challenge isn't can you turn out a few more wimpy percent. The real challenge is how do you stop the corruption in the election? So instead of focusing on this piddly little boost you think you're going to get, you need to secure your elections. But they were having none of it, and eventually the rhinos, swarmed Trump, and eventually he agreed to do the strategy. He was just being political, and
which is, I think, when you and I not panicked, but had a conversation in the summer, like, okay, this is in God's hands. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing.
Yep.
Educating people, waking people up, building local movements, and the rest, if he gets over the finish line, is going to be a miracle. And that's pretty much, I think, what happened.
I think it was a miracle too. I think we had two of them. We had the ear, and we had the in Butler County.
Right?
What?
I said, right? Pennsylvania. What is it with this state, Dr. Frank? Oh my God.
Well, you guys are the Keystone State, right?
We are the Keystone State. It's just wild. And we're going to publish a report. Vico and I together are working on, he's supplying the data, obviously, and I'm just trying to put the pieces together for him. We are going to be putting a report out and publishing the results that he did find, because what we are seeing that definitely contributed, if not should be getting way more credit, not us, for Trump's win in Pennsylvania, is the fact that there were measures that were put in place. For example, an Act 88 is a law that was passed right before the midterms in 2022, which at the time I was very critical of. Senator Mastriano actually spearheaded this effort and had a lot to do with this law getting passed before the governor race. But I was critical at the time because I wanted no more Zuckerbucks, no way that any private money could get into. And there was some wording in the law that to me looked like it left it open for a Zuckerbuck type situation to happen again. So I was really critical. But as it turns out, it looks like Act 88 is what, hey, very good, Joel, look at you. This little bugger is what saved the day, because this did two things. Number one, it did eliminate them being able to flood the system with private Zuckerbuck money. Number two, here's the big one.
That's how they were buying the ballots that they were stuffing. Go ahead.
And funding the drop boxes and the satellite offices and all that stuff from Mark Zuckerberg. Let's not forget, everyone's hailing that guy as our friend now, which part of our
no.
Which just settled a $25 million a settlement with Trump for Trump sued him. Did you see that for taking him to President Trump off of Facebook after January 6th? They just settled today for $25 million. He did not admit, by the way, in that lawsuit that he did anything wrong. They just decided to settle for whatever reason. But the key to this particular piece of legislation that I think saved the 2024 election was required more transparency around the mail-in ballots. This required every county to have to report how many outstanding ballots they had by midnight on election day. So they weren't able to find these exorbitant numbers like what they did in 2020, the week after election, because of this. And because I think people like me and tons of others all across the state had eyes on the ground. We were literally like just watching like hawks, and they knew it. We had people watching drop boxes, efforts on the eastern side of the state where just average everyday citizens organized and watched those things, and they knew we were watching, and they couldn't pull the same shenanigans. And I personally think, and we're going to put a report out publishing it with data to back it up, that is really what gave Pennsylvania the win in 2020. There's always going to be a need to get out the vote. There's always going to be voter registration drives. That never changes. But they would have, I think, pulled the same crap if it wasn't for people like me and you and Vico and all the other people that have been on the ground since 2020 who said, wait a minute, something went wrong here. And I feel like we spent 4 years just trying to figure out how it works. How's it supposed to work? Where are the vulnerabilities? What the heck did they do? It took us 4 years just to figure that out, and then try to like plug the holes as they were popping up all over the place. Now it's time to take ground. Now it's time to get the infrastructure, the volunteers, the people in place that we can take ground so that there's a chance we don't lose 2026. And I'm super excited to work with you on that, Dr. Frank, and have you as a consultant, kind of, if you will, for our ground efforts with Audit the Vote.
I'm happy to do that. This would be a perfect time to segue to one of my slides, if I could.
Yes, please.
Because if you want, you can include this in your report. So what this graph is, I've done this for the whole country. These 8 bars, 12 bars you see for every state, Texas, Florida, and you see, notice Pennsylvania, there's the fourth one over. The leftmost bar is the number of ballots that were received for Reagan in 1980. So that's the 1980 election. And then the rightmost vertical bar is the number of ballots that were received for Trump in 2024. So you can see how many Republican ballots were received. I don't mean Republican ballots, votes for the Republican candidate is what I meant to say. For every election, every 4 years, from 1980 to 2024. I'm using my mouse and not the pointer. So this is for Reagan, this is for Trump. And you notice that from 2020 to 2024, you barely got any more ballots. Do you see this? In your state, Trump barely got many more votes. It's under 5%. It's like 3.5% more ballots. So all that work that you supposedly did to chase ballots, that's all you got. Now the Democrats, if we look at the Democrat number of ballots, let's look at them. Let's see here. Oops, I got to go back one, I think. There you go. The Democrats went down. If the Democrats had just kept going up, but you notice that the Democrats went down in all the states.
Yep.
So
Vico found the same thing in Pennsylvania. So their turnout was hurt.
And so, but this is my point. And I don't mean this in any derogatory way towards Trump. I don't think Trump won. I think the Democrats lost. Trump did not increase his turnout very much at all across the country. He got the same magnificent turnout that he got in 2020. They just out-cheated it turnout. He got the same turnout that he got last time, but the Democrats were unable to cheat as much. And the turnout, and you can see the turnout, every state is way down for Kamala. So
because they didn't like her. Exactly. She was very unpopular candidate. They don't even deny that now.
I agree. Now, there's one more graph I should show on this. Let's see. I gave you the wrong one. It's the next slide, I think, because these are in alphabetical order. If I ratio the Republicans to Democrats, if I ratio them so that you can see who won, who lost, and for the same set of 12 bars, here's your Pennsylvania, you notice that you're really close to even between Republican and Democrat. This would be if you have the equal number of votes for the Republican candidate or the Democrat candidate. It's equal number. You barely eked it out. Barely eked it out. So in other words, if Kamala's turnout had just held the same as Biden's or gone up a little, you would have lost. And what I've done is I've collected the 9 most vulnerable states. And you're one of them, okay?
Of course.
Of course we are. And you're one of them. So that's another reason why and you can see the trend in every one of these states. Look, the red bars are going down in every state. What that means is that the ratio of votes for the Republican candidate to the number of votes for the Democratic candidate, that ratio is going down. It's becoming less Republican. And it's not just there, it's in every state. I could have shown you every state, but I'm trying to keep it focused on Pennsylvania tonight. If people want to see this, you can go to my YouTube page. I've got a whole long description of this, but I think it's enough because we're talking about Pennsylvania. If there was ever a time in your life, Pennsylvania, to get involved, it's now, and it's in the next year. And the thing I hate about it when I'm listening to myself see this is we've been listening to this political crap for decades. This is the most important election in your lifetime. Okay, guess what? Freedom is gone. Okay, by God's providence, we got Trump in office. Okay, okay. If he wasn't here, we were toast. This is it. We were done. But now wait a minute. If I project, thank you for doing that, Joel. If I project this trend, and I've done this for every state now, we're going to lose 2026 right now. We're going to lose 2026. In other words, Trump's going to lose the House unless there's a major sea change in the country and everybody wakes up. And I love, when I talked to you earlier today, I really like something you said. I even wrote it down. People need to be aware, informed, and then I added one more word. They need to be activated.
Amen.
Okay, and what's happened is a lot of people think, okay, yeah, we have problems, but Trump's going to fix them. Well, they're aware, but they aren't informed enough to realize what the real problem is. And I think once people realize what the real problem is, then they will engage. And so, they call me the Johnny Appleseed of election integrity. I've been traveling the whole country, waking people up, starting bonfires, that's my website, my YouTube. By the way, before the election in 2020, they took down actually, that's not quite true. I was very popular on YouTube. I was making $3,000 a month on YouTube back in 2020 because of my COVID stuff. People loved what I was doing. I wasn't even trying to make money. Okay, I don't know how
I didn't find you before that day, because I was living in that data, trying to convince people you don't have to live in fear.
I was graphing every county in the country every week. I was showing you that I was automating all my software, so I was producing graphs. So all you had to do was go and look it up, and you could know how many people were going to die in your county next week. I mean, it was crazy. And when Mr. Lindell made that movie about me, Scientific Proof, the next week YouTube took me down. And
that's when you got taken down. Oh my God!
For my YouTube channel. The Facebook channel got taken down right before the election. And I thought they were taking me down because of my vaccine graphs. But in retrospect, I think they were taking me down because I had also posted all of my projections for the election. And Trump was a 20-1 favorite. And I had run all the statistics. By the way, just so I can toot my own horn a little bit. In 2016, that election, I predicted 13 months ahead of time that Trump was going to win, and the odds were 2-1. That was even before Trump was the candidate. And I didn't vote for him, by the way, in the primary. I voted for Rand Paul. I'm a libertarian. And so I had calculated that Trump was going to win, and I was telling everybody, yep, Trump's going to win this. And they're like, he's not even the candidate. There are 17 people in the primary. And I'm like, nope. And I was using the math. And so I had done the same math for the 2020 election. And I had predicted that Trump was going to win 20-1. It was going to be another Reagan second term. And so, just a second. Here we go. You going to sleep?
Aww.
Okay. I'll see you tomorrow.
Night, night, Nelly.
See you.
Okay. That's a nightly event for me. That's very nice.
If I wasn't in the shed, mine would be getting beaten down as well. So she's adorable.
Okay, Nelly, thank you very much. So anyway, the reason I'm saying that is that because the math is real, and I'm a math guy, and I do the math, and so I'm making the predictions based upon the math, and sometimes the statistics are complicated for people. And by the way, that video that's up there, see the matters of life and death, I just put that up 2 or 3 hours ago. And it's basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help people understand the statistics of life and death in America. And it seems morose, but it's really not. It's a really handy reference. I teach you how to calculate how much longer you're going to live. And it's crazy. And I also show what the wave of baby boomers that's now hitting their average lifespan. People, I don't think, understand that right now in America, we're about to have a huge surge in deaths. The death rate's going up, and it's because all the baby boomer generation is reaching the end of their lives. Oh, Joel's playing the video. That's cool. So it's about a 40-minute video. You don't have to watch the whole thing all at once, but it's broken up into 7 sections. And there's a section on population. There's a section on longevity. There's a section on abortion at the end. That's very compelling. It's shocking. I had no idea it was to this extent. But and when you talked earlier, you even said, "Oh yeah, but abortion's going down." No, it's not. It's on the rise, a huge rise right now. And
I would have thought with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, it would have gone down. I'm really interested to watch this. So you can, this is on YouTube. Is it also on Rumble, Dr. Frank? You're on multiple.
I didn't put it up on Rumble yet. It's so hard to put it up, a long video up on Rumble. I only just put it up. I'll put it up, but I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah. So go to his YouTube channel at DouglasFrank5204 is the link directly to this video. I can't wait to check this out because I would have thought since the overturning Roe v. Wade, abortions have gone down. But Dr. Frank is saying the money or the numbers are showing otherwise.
There's a dramatic upturn. And I even talk about it in the movie. I say it's ironic because you would think once they made it not nationally legal again, really all it did is push it back to the states. But it's right now, just I don't want to take us off our topic, but just to give you a startling statistic, this should shock you. For every 4 people that are born today, there's another person who's aborted. That's how high the abortion statistics are right now. And people have no idea. People don't realize that's what's going on. Now, the video isn't about abortion. It's about life and death in America. And I'm tracking all the things where people are being born and people are dying, right? And so that's one of the ways. And if you think about it, that's a lot of death. That's 1 in 5 people aren't being born. That's a lot. So, and that's not contraception, that's abortion. So that's interesting. And you can, by the way, you can see the effect of, okay, now I'm getting nerdy. You can see the effect of the contraception in the graphs too. And I talk about that.
Wow.
So it's in sections. You don't have to watch it all at once, but it's handy. So anyway, I'm rambling now.
Most of my audience
and I'm telling you, I'm predicting you guys are in trouble in Pennsylvania. You got to wake up. You got to get your people awake, and you got to take back control of your elections, local control of your elections. You were with me, I think. We were traveling across your state, and we met with a county clerk. And we don't want to use names because we don't want to get people in trouble. But she was relatively new to the job. And this was before the 2020 election. And her election didn't reconcile. And she found problems with it. And she called your Secretary of State and said, I can't certify my election. And your Secretary of State said, you certify your election or you're going to jail and you're going to lose your job. And were you in that conversation with me?
I wasn't, but I remember it.
It was, I don't remember which, well, I do remember. I'm not going to say. I didn't remember whether it was you or maybe Karen that took me to that meeting. But one of the two of you took, and because I've met with clerks all over the country, and another thing that I heard around the country is with regard to Tina Peters, clerks will say to me, "Oh, Dr. Frank, I can't question the integrity of the election." Quote, "I don't want to be Tina Petered," unquote. And yeah, and so that's another whole topic.
Breaking news. We have to take a break because our chat is blowing up and my phone is even blowing up. And Joel has now said he's got this ready to share. Thank you, Mark, for sticking that in the chat. There's been a plane crash in DC live. This is happening right now in Washington, DC, a plane crash. I don't understand is your phone, Dr. Frank, you got any of this on your radar? This is the first time we're seeing this.
Yeah, my phone's blown up.
Your phone's blown up too. Joel, do we got any audio? We could see what the heck is happening. So small aircraft has crashed. I was just going to read that.
Deep breath here for a second, because we want to show you video that's into the newsroom. This is from EarthCam, and this is from near the Kennedy Center. And this is what we've just been authorized to show you. We're working to get that ready to show you. Here it is. This is what's being said to be the moment that the collision happened there. Again, we're being told, here's a better angle. This is not a live shot. I want to stress, this is not a live, or is this a live shot? Or no, okay. We just want to be careful with that because we want people to know that what happened and what is happening. But this is the moment, purportedly, that a helicopter crashed, collided with what is only being called a small aircraft at this hour. And yeah, so you can see the flash there. And look, so the plane on top, it looks like that was taking off.
Yeah, that's just a normal launch.
In the middle of the screen there,
you see
right there.
It's hard to tell which aircraft was which.
Yeah.
There's really
no that was the low ground. That was the
I would imagine. Okay, let's watch it again. So
disregard
the one on top
for a second, Joel.
That is a plane taking off up on
Penny
top
said
of the
in the
screen.
chat an American
Airlines.
Airlines
You see the smaller vehicle with the flashing lights there on the left.
Breaking, an American Airlines flight collided midair with a police helicopter.
Yeah, that's what Penny's saying in the chat. Collided with a police helicopter during its approach, crashing into the Potomac River. The number of passengers on board remains unknown. Wow.
The plane crashed as a result? Oh, it crashed into the Potomac River. Oh. So the plane crashed as well. Wow. So
we're not news anchors because we're just like,
no, definitely not.
What the heck? Breaking news live.
Yeah. Thanks, Penny, for the heads up.
Yes, thank you, guys.
It sounds like a terrorist attack. It sounds like a collision.
It sounds like an accident of some sort, hopefully. But with everything we've seen over the last 4 years, who knows? Joe, anything else breaking on that? Keep us posted. But
when 9/11 happened, I was teaching a chemistry class at the time, literally, and I said, "Okay, everybody, close your chemistry books." And I turned on the TV, and we watched the towers go down live. And I was telling my students, this is going to be one of those moments in history that changes the course of a country. And so you just need to experience this. This needs to be, you'll be able to tell your kids someday, yeah, I watched it actually happen. And it was a sobering moment to realize, and we had friends that were working in the Pentagon at the time. And then, it wasn't just the towers, it was also the Pentagon. So it was a traumatic. So when this happens, all those emotions come back.
No, well, I won't even tell you what I was in college at the time and was not a Christian yet. So I won't even tell you what I was doing on 9/11. My husband and I share that with one.
Before you were a beautiful mom, in other words.
Oh, I have to hear this story later.
This is the Christmas card I got this year. So
use your imagination. It was in the morning. I was in college. Where do you think I was?
Yeah.
Just and again,
reading the Bible.
Reading the Bible, sure, that my mother sent me to college with, and I shoved to the back of my closet and didn't open again until I accepted Jesus when I was 24. That's a separate topic. Thank you for that. So yeah, keep us updated if there's anything we should be sharing with the public, just to let them know what was going on then. But Dr. Frank, you had said a couple of things that was going to be a perfect segue into my commercial for the Patriot Experience, because Dr. Frank is talking about getting active. Now is the time to press in and get active, and I could not agree more. And Rick Green, we've got a quick video when he gets it up, inviting us
to come right here to the Patriot. Hey, Pennsylvania, Audit the Vote, thank you for saving the election and preventing the steal from happening this time. Your next step is to come right here to the Patriot Academy campus in Fredericksburg, Texas, and get a chance to enjoy the Patriot Experience, which means you'll be on the floor debating the bills, you'll be in committee, you'll be learning the entire legislative process, you'll get speaking training, constitution training, all kinds of cool stuff, and great fellowship with fellow patriots from across the nation. Mark your calendar. You can come April 22nd through 24th with our coach team, and even stay after if you have time to do our handgun defense class called Constitutional Defense. But either way, at some point in 2025, you got to come to Fredericksburg and experience the Patriot Experience. Thank you again for saving the election in Pennsylvania. Your hard work is going to reap benefits for generations to come. We'll see you here at the Patriot Experience.
Surreal, totally surreal. So yes, please join us. Joel can put up the website if you want to check that out. If you're not already committed to coming, I have been doing some fundraising to pay for some of the folks from Pennsylvania that are on our team locally here to go down for that, to make it a little bit. I know it's Texas and I know it's far, but here's my quick plug. I went to that in August of 2023 on staff. Thankfully, Rick Green hired me because he called me in the early 2023 when I was devastated from the Mastriano loss. not 2022 midterms not going the direction that we wanted to go. My mother had passed away in the summer. I was starting to really struggle emotionally and thinking, Lord, why did you do this? Why did you shift my entire life? And Rick called me and said, you've done a great job with these classes. Will you go find more of you for me? Will you help train, work for me, help train people and get more people doing more classes? And I said, yes. That summer, I was then dragged, because I was staff, down to the Patriot Academy. It was Austin and the capital, actually. They had not built the campus yet, but I was dragged down there for what they called their Coach Congress. It was a leadership training. And I only went because I was on staff. But man, was I blown away with yet again how much I learned and how they are literally equipping the next generation to become statesmen, to go serve into the area of the public with the knowledge of what a constitutional republic is supposed to function, how to write laws. It was the most incredible week education wise I've had, outside of taking, well, I shouldn't say most incredible, because we've been through a lot together, Dr. Frank. That cyber symposium in and of itself was mind boggling. Wow. But it was, I just went and said, we need to get as many Americans as we can educated on the process of how our laws are actually written. You get immersed in the committee process. You'll have to write a bill yourself, and you actually get to
hold on, there's a new update.
Oh. What's the update?
Plane crashes. Huh. While we're waiting to get the info on that, let me chime something you said. In Nebraska, our supermom there, analogous to you in Pennsylvania, her name's Melissa Sauter. She was writing the legislation for the legislators. Okay. And does that sound familiar?
It does, because when I was in there, and there was another girl, Meg Kalina. Do you know Meg?
I don't remember her.
She's from Nebraska. I had written a bill to ban components of electronic voting machines. That was the bill I debated. And as I was arguing it on the House floor, I had made some missteps in the way that I was presenting the bill.
Live continuing coverage of an apparent tragedy that's happened in the skies right near Reagan National Airport at 8:53 p.m. We've been told that calls came in for a collision between a military helicopter and a small aircraft. At this hour, it is said to be a passenger aircraft colliding in the Potomac, which is why you see this giant response out there. I realize it appears the shots may be frozen at times as you're looking at those images. That is normal in situations like this, but you can see it as a very fluid situation. And we have been reaching out to our sources, the Associated Press, again, confirming by way of the FAA that this has been a passenger jet involved in this. But in terms of what passenger jet, we don't know.
Live from my only skepticism, of course, with everything we've been through, is do we have non-mainstream covering this?
That is underway.
We know mainstream.
I don't trust Fox anymore.
No, I don't either. So if we can have non-mainstream coverage of what's actually going on.
All right. This just coming into to Fox 5 by way of Fox News. The FAA says the plane involved was Flight 5342. It was heading from Wichita, Kansas to Reagan National Airport. That would jibe with what we learned from U.S. Senator Jerry Moran, who within the last 20 minutes just said it was from Kansas. This would be an American Airlines flight. Again, 5342. It is a smaller plane. It would be more of a regional jet. So we're not looking at one of those larger planes that we're customarily seeing taking off and landing at Reagan National Airport. But that is the latest word as this comes into our newsroom.
Yeah, those are one of those small planes that can carry anywhere from like 60, I would say, 60 to 70 people, including crew. At this point, we still don't know exactly how many people were on board that aircraft as well as the helicopter. One of the questions, or a couple of the questions that do remain. And also, we don't know what led up to this, like how the flight paths got crossed.
Sky Fox in the scene right now as we head over towards the airport area, and that you can really see from across the Potomac just the scope of this operation at this hour. And the plane itself, based on flight data that I'm seeing, this is a Bombardier CRJ 700 jet that was apparently involved in this. So you could see just in terms of the operation out there, and presumably a lot of the roads leading into Reagan National at this hour are going to be closed. The airport, all flights have been shut down. The terminal, at least at last check, was open. But, we're getting to the point in the evening where a lot of those airlines would close for the evening anyway. Everything would come in. And
has President Trump made any statements or anything? Okay. I just don't trust Fox.
And in terms of the flight path for this one, again, it's not a very large airport.
Yeah, don't cut it for now because there's really nothing new that's happening.
I agree.
Yeah,
that's the cool thing about Trump. He doesn't hesitate to communicate with us.
He doesn't. No. I'll be interested to see what his take is.
He'll tell us what's up, and I'll believe him. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I'm going to finish up my rant on the Patriot Experience, but why you should go. Oh, so you and I were talking about the bill that I was writing.
Oh yeah,
I was arguing the bill. I had put something in it that was not quite right.
You told me you made a mistake. Yeah.
Or that they thought wouldn't pass, or that's the whole thing. You learn the political process from a completely different perspective being immersed in it. And Meg Kalina pulled me aside and said, I've worked with, she dropped your name, Dr. Frank and Colonel Sean Smith, in the bill that you're writing here. Let's make XYZ changes because it'll make it better. Yeah. And we got to do all of that together. And so, yes, to answer your question, I know the people from Nebraska that were working.
Yes.
Melissa might have somehow connected. Souder might have connected with her too. I don't remember.
I think it was Melissa who wrote the stuff, and I know because she was sending me her bills. I'm reviewing them. I've got Sean Smith involved. Why are we writing their bills?
Right, exactly.
And the answer is because because the American public doesn't understand our elections. Neither do the legislators. I have spent when I meet with legislators, I spend most of my time teaching them their own system.
Amen. And we have. That's why I'm trying to drag people to Texas, because we have to learn this to take back our government. We have to become the government again. Yes. And I came out of there that August like, oh my gosh, everybody needs to do this. This is how we make an impact. So look into that. Joel, drop the link to the Patriot Experience. We're going to be doing a lot of those with Patriot Academy over the next couple of years. But if you want to come in April with us, that's when we're going. And I lost my train of thought. Back to you, Dr. Frank. What were you about to say before I interrupted you with my little commercial?
Well, I love that because actually, I think we were in sync. The thing that I've learned a lot of lessons. You've learned a lot of lessons. One of the lessons is one of the reasons we're in the mess we're in right now is because we've been so disengaged from politics for so many years that we don't know what we're doing. So, for example, you want to write a law, but you don't even know you're making all kinds of mistakes. Next time, you're not going to make that mistake, right? Next time, you're now experienced. So the way I describe that is in a sports analogy, we have a shallow bench. We have a lot of new people coming in, and we don't have a lot of experience. So we're making a lot of naive mistakes. In Nebraska, using the Precinct Project, we took over the state of Nebraska. I was so proud of them. The grassroots took over the Republican Party. It was awesome. Everybody was woohoo, woohoo, we got it. But the problem is now we have a bunch of rookies running the Republican Party, and they didn't know what they were doing, and they lost it within a year later. Because the establishment Republicans are far more seasoned, far more experienced, and they knew how to manipulate things around. So we have to learn the political process and so to be able to play the game. So all of us are in this learning process, and really the honest truth is, America is an experiment in self-government. We're supposed to be governing ourselves, but we've become conditioned. I go to these meetings. I talk all over the country, and there's always somebody that gets up and makes an announcement, and they say, "Oh, we've got such and such thing." I don't mean to use a woman's voice. "Oh, we've got such and such thing. You've got such and such bill. Call your legislator." And I just think like, oh my gosh, your legislator doesn't give a darn. Okay, that is not going to do anything. What you need to do is, if there's something that needs to be changed, you change it. You're the government. And then when you change it locally, guess what? Then the state legislature looks back and says, oh, we have to do this, don't we? Because our people, if you're waiting for it to come top down, hell's going to freeze over. It's got to be bottom up. I was on the phone today. Oh, I got to tell you this. This is news. I was on the phone today with Huntington Beach. They're a big county in Southern California, a big city in Orange County, Southern California.
Is this going to be about the illegals? Because that's right where I was going next.
That's where all right. Yes.
Perfect.
And they are fed up with the state running their elections, and they voted last year, almost a year ago now, that starting in 2026, they're going to run all their own elections themselves. Now, of course, when they did that, the state is freaking out like, no, you can't do that. And they said, oh, yeah, read our charter. Right here in our charter that the state of California signed off on, it says we can run our own elections. We're running our own elections. And not only that, there are 8 cities in Orange County that have charters. And so this is what we're doing. Now, here's the thing. You can't just run out there and say, yeah, we're gonna take back our elections. You got to have substance under that. This is where I come in. When I go into communities, I teach them how to find fraud in their own elections. Because once you find fraud in your own elections, then you don't have to comply with the state requirements anymore, because fraud is violating your constitutional rights. And you don't have to comply with any law that violates your constitutional rights. In fact, as Jefferson said, you're obligated to not comply with any law that violates your constitutional rights. So anyway, we're working with them finding fraud. And in this process, we've come across some very, very interesting evidence. And this is not, you guys know me now. By now, you know that I never talk about stuff that I don't have solid evidence for. So we have ways now, we have our ways of finding out who the illegal aliens are. But not just the illegal aliens, all non-citizens. And the rolls in California are full of non-citizens, because they automatically register people when they get driver's licenses, and they have a lot of non-citizens there. Now the question is how many of those non-citizens voted? It's a lot. It's a big number. And all we had to do was cross, and I'm not going to say which databases we had access to yet. All we had to do is take some databases we have that show who the citizens and non-citizens are. And we compared those to, I guess I can say, because it went public. I sent you the link for that today.
I have Joel, pull up the article for Maine that I had sent you.
All right, so I guess I can spill this part of this detail.
Yes.
And that is that there was, if you think about it, governments don't do anything. Governments hire people to do things. They hire contractors. And so there were some contractors, and I'm not going to say where, but they were in California. And they were managing the health records, the welfare records, for the welfare records for their county. And they're conservative patriots. And they're like, we hear that there are non-citizens voting. So they contacted one of us, and we gave them a copy of the voter rolls and showed them who had voted and who had not voted. And they cross-checked it across the medical welfare records, where in the welfare records, it shows if a person is a citizen or not. And one of the first things that happens is when aliens come across the border, they get signed up for welfare. They get signed up for health care and things. And guess what? It says right in all those forms whether or not they're citizens or not. Well, guess what? When we cross-correlate the two lists, la-dee-da, we got a bunch of non-citizens voting in the election. This is hard evidence. Okay. Now, when this is not new. We had this a couple years ago, but we couldn't get any action anywhere. And so the guys on the team were very frustrated. So one of them anonymously posted it on social media. It went viral on social media. Thousands and thousands of people saw it. Well, this article is written by an investigative reporter in the state of Maine. And he saw this and he said, gee, I know some friends who work for the state in this division, and they're conservative, and I wonder if they could check this too. And sure enough, the same thing was happening there. My guess is this is happening nationwide, baby. And if you had asked me 6 months ago, I would have said it's a waste of time for us to chase after this, because the government is going to squash anything we do. But there's a different captain at the top right now.
Yep.
And my guess is now that that's happened, and now that we have this, we already know how to do this. We've already got this figured out. That's going to be news, I think. So anyway, that was me. And that ties into that other thing you and I talked about with the constitutional thing about whether when people come here and they have a baby, should they be citizens, et cetera. Anyway, I'll shut up now because I can tell you're ready to go.
No, you're good. I'm just we'll try to wind things down and wrap up. I usually stick to an hour. I talked to Dr. Frank.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. You can have me back another time. We'll talk some more.
No, he didn't have a hard stop. We'll do an hour and 30. We'll try to stop it at an hour and 30 because I did want to run through some other current events for people because I get asked questions all the time. What's your take on this? What's your take on that? So I'm trying to give my weekly. Yes, you too. See, so this we can cover more ground, answer more questions. People just follow us. You want to know what we think about what's going on current events wise. We're going to spill it. A lot of good stuff happened. A lot of not so good stuff. The birthright citizenship thing. What I want to say about that is Trump's executive orders. He signed a bunch of executive orders for federal financial assistance, pause, temporary halt on various federal financial assistance programs, not including Social Security and Medicare, to review the spending and align with the presidential priorities. Pause affected, it says, potentially trillions of dollars, including foreign aid and clean energy initiatives. And a federal judge issued a temporary restraining order delaying the halt until February the 3rd. So even the ones that he's trying to sign, which are, I think, good, although like Dr. Frank said, then we're not supposed to govern by executive order. Last week, I played a video by Rick Green where he talks about how do you know if an executive order is constitutional, because they were given that power originally so that they could enforce the law. The executive branch's role is to enforce law. So if an executive order is simply forcing a law, trying to force the law to be followed, that's how you know that it is constitutional, versus if it's writing its own, if it's just going haywire, writing its own stuff, which we've already talked about needs to happen in some areas. What was the one executive order about gender affirming? Did he write one about gender affirming care? Do you know anything about that, Dr. Frank? Did you see that this week?
I don't know anything about that. No.
He did something. He wrote something limiting gender affirming care for minors. I don't know what it's
on the screen right now.
I mean, that's
goals ahead of us.
Keep an eye on the screen.
Gender affirming care. He signed an order that attempts to end gender transitions for people under 19. I mean, that's just
that's preposterous. No child has the ability to make that decision for themselves.
But what's disturbing to me is the fact that we have to deal with this. Like, this is insane that we even have to have an executive order for this. That's how far the culture has crumbled.
That's what I was talking about earlier. I mean, it's insane that we need the president to pardon all those people to get them out of prison for J6. And it's insane that the day before Biden leaves, he pardons 4,000 people. Okay. This is not the way our government is supposed to be running. And I think we need to rise up as a people. Excuse us. We're the government. You work for us. We're not going to put up with this horse manure anymore.
Amen. And so his executive orders that he's signing for immigration this is what he ran on, right? He's going to deport tons of people that are here.
Finish the wall. I heard that. Yeah.
Finish the wall, deport people that are here illegally. I saw a couple days ago the press room asking the new press secretary.
Me too. I saw that. I watched that.
Did you see that? The criminals what criminals have crossed the border? All of them. They broke the law to get here. What do you not understand about that? And President Trump there, Joel, focus on that. The ending the birthright citizenship. If you look into the original intent of even having that in the 14th Amendment, it was when slavery had ended. Essentially, the North won the Civil War. It completely ended slavery, but the slaves had no rights. They couldn't vote. There was segregation. They couldn't work. They had no rights. So they weren't slaves, but they were. And so that's why birthright citizenship was even put in there in the first place, was to give them something to stand on. And today they're trying to use it to say, well, if illegals crossed the border and had a baby here, the baby should be a legal citizen. That's completely against what it was originally intended for. Agreed. And so I agree with President Trump's birthright citizenship executive order, because I feel like it's reinforcing what the 14th Amendment and the Constitution intention was for that particular. There it is.
I agree with you, and I would bow to your prowess constitutionally over me anyway. But the thing that bothers me about it is that the next president could just undo it and go back to that. And that's why we can't have our country being run this way. This is preposterous. I mean, I love everything Trump is doing. Don't get me wrong. I just think that it's a disaster that it requires that. By the way, there's a gal named Chris Ann Hall, one of my favorite constitutional scholars, and she has been posting a great deal on the birthright citizenship thing. I would encourage you to, and by the way, she'd be a great interview. She she set me straight in a lot of categories. I don't know where I'd be without her. She has a YouTube video that is just amazing. If you haven't seen it, you ought to see it, Miss Constitution. I
read one of her books. It was very good.
Yeah, this one's called Genealogy of the Constitution. It's an hour long, and she basically dissects the Constitution and shows you all the source documents that our founding fathers knit together to make our Constitution. They didn't write it. They compiled it. And she shows the history of each of the components. In other words, our founding fathers didn't need to reinvent the wheel. They looked at history. They were well learned. They understood. They said, okay, this works, this works, this works. This doesn't work. Take that out. And they compiled a beautiful, it's totally awesome. So anyway, that's good. Now there's something else in one of the executive orders. I think it's super important. People don't know this. And since I just finished the population study stuff that I talked about, we have over 1 million people that are immigrants right now in our country, for which there have been court orders already issued to deport them. Already, courts have already said, yes, Jose Jimenez, he needs to be deported. And they've already have court orders already in cast. So the question is nobody's been enforcing them. So if you think about it, it's not just the criminals that were mentioned in the press conference the other day that are, it's horrible that we allow these people to be here and rape our children, which is most of the ones she quoted, the press secretary quoted. But we already have court orders to deport over 1 million of them already that are here. And so all we have to do is enforce those. And I think that's coming. And so I think we got some interesting few months coming up here. Because I think if I were Trump, and he's doing this very well, I'm very impressed. I don't think I would send the troops banging people's doors down right now. I think I'd say, y'all that are here and we have deportation orders for you, you got 3 months to figure out and get your kit together and get out of Dodge. And if after that 3 months you're still here, you're fair game. We're coming for you.
Here's the sticky part,
that's the way I would approach it, I think.
Here's what's happening. Joel scrolled by it quickly earlier. There's 30 businesses in Pittsburgh. This is Pennsylvania specific. 30 businesses in Pittsburgh that shut down because they were concerned about ICE raid. They wanted to basically protect the illegals from being raided by ICE. And the mayor of Pittsburgh, Ed Gainey, is out there basically saying, I won't cooperate. So what do you think about waiting it out for people like that? Like they're clearly like, nope, sorry, not going to do it.
I think all's fair in love and war. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And while Biden was around and the libs were in charge of our government, they weaponized the government against us. They, penalized businesses that wouldn't wear masks. They penalized restaurants and whatnot. Well, guess what? We can follow the law and penalize these people. And so if Pittsburgh isn't going to comply with the law, guess what? Their federal funds just dried up. Okay. In other words, we have huge levers and we need to use them. And if there's anything I know about Trump, dude, that guy knows how to use levers. He is the art of the deal guy. He will use, and so they'll make a lot of noise because they have to sound good and they have to sound politically correct, but they're going down, buddy. And I love that's happening, but I also don't love it that it took this. But we already went down that road, so I won't rant that. Do you want me to answer that NGO question?
Yes, go for it. Before you do that, let me do one more thing.
Yeah, okay.
Because I want Joel to, before he pulls up the media, I want to play the media clip from the new press secretary. I just want to remind people, please share this because we are the new media now. Elon Musk has made that clear. Thankfully, his purchase of X and Twitter. We are not nearly as susceptible to be booted for talking about free speech and censorship and all of that, which pray for RFK and his confirmation to get through because I heard that he got quite the beating today. Dr. Frank, go on the NGOs and then Joel, do the media clip when Dr. Frank's done with his NGO answer.
Okay. The NGO is a perfect chance. Yes. Thank you, Ken, for the question. Is a perfect opportunity to bring up Vico again. So what happened is when I was studying the voter rolls in Pennsylvania after 2020, I discovered a very interesting thing. I discovered that right before the election, suddenly 50,000 people were added to the voter rolls in Montgomery County, like within a month of the election. Okay. And somebody might say, oh, well, that's normal. There's always no, this was one big chunk. And what was interesting about this, long story short, is those are people who had been removed from the rolls 10 years earlier. So they were being reinserted into the rolls 10 years after they'd been taken out. They were former residents, people that have passed away, people that are no longer there, in other words. And every one of them voted in the election. That was weird to me. I was able to pull that out of the data. And then what shocked me even more was that within 6 weeks, by the end of December, they'd all been removed from the rolls. So in other words, somebody had inserted them in the rolls. 50,000 ballots had been stuffed in Montgomery County using those names. And then within 2 months, they were all removed from the rolls. Now that is a huge problem. Now, just showing that alone should put fear of God into you about your elections in Pennsylvania. But here's how it was happening. And this is where Vico comes in. And God bless Vico. He's awesome at this. He put together a team of volunteers and they scoured. They were given access to the logs, the state logs showing who was adding and removing voters. And they found a minimum of 32 non-government organizations, NGOs, that were doing this. Wait a minute. NGOs have access to your voter rolls, so much so that they were putting in voters, then stuffing ballots for them, and then the state was automatically removing the voters after the election. You know why? Because they weren't here anymore, and it showed up that they had moved away a long time ago, and so the automatic system was doing the cleanup afterwards. Okay, so we know who those NGOs are. We have the logs proving when they came in and when they went out. So we went to your committee with that evidence saying, here it is, guys, this is how they're cheating your election. And I was expecting them to go, oh, no, yeah. But no. I think it was Russ Diamond actually wrote up a bill and said, we're going to pass a law in January. He proposed it on the floor saying, we're going to have a law where no more NGOs can't get into our rolls anymore. Only official agencies have access. And it didn't even make that a committee. That was a shock to me because we proved that your elections were being hacked that way, and they didn't want to protect. So that was one of my eye-opening things.
And that was before you and I met. That was all before you and I even met.
Yes. Now, across the country, NGOs are the boots on the ground that are cheating the elections. And what happens is money flows in from the outside, and that's what you mentioned earlier with the Zuckerberg thing. Where does it really flow? It flows in through these grants that he's giving to these non-government organizations. And in exchange for that money, the NGOs are delivering ballots. I could tell you story after story, and it's getting late, so not tonight. But I can tell you a story. I'm not hypothesizing this. I'm a scientist, so you're allowed to go one step beyond the data. That's called a hypothesis. But once you've confirmed it, now you can go on to another. No, I've already confirmed this. This is all over the country. The NGOs are the means by which the ballots are being stuffed. They get paid to do this. So yes,
and True the Vote exposed this too. Found this and exposed this for sure.
Exactly, and so I'm not hypothesizing. This is true. So I'm 100% against funding. Now, this is a very practical thing you can do. So I love it that this came up because people always come to me, Dr. Frank, what can I do? What can I do? And I always say, take back local control of your government, and in the process, take back local control of your elections. But by the way, here's something really simple you can do. Ask for a copy of your county budget. You're entitled to it. You're a citizen. You go and you talk to your county clerk and you say, I'd like to, I'll talk about Fractal in a minute. I'd like to see a copy of our budget. And when they first do that, they're going to give you a rough copy. Okay. It won't have a lot of detail in it. And then you're going to find the category, and there's a little number next to it, 103.27 or whatever, which goes to funding things like Catholic relief services, Lutheran relief services, local NGOs. You're going to find that in your county, not every county, but most counties I'm in, your county is giving money to these NGOs. And guess what it's going to? It's going to harvesting ballots from homeless people and low-income people and minorities. That's where the money is going. And it's a simple way for you to expose that channel of money to your local NGOs. Now, the fractal computing thing, I saw a comment there from Ken, and I'm careful what I say about this, because I have a policy in this battle that if your guns are aimed at the enemy, I don't shoot at you, okay? But that doesn't mean I'm going to invite you in my foxhole, okay? You're welcome in my foxhole anytime, Tony. Yeah, I totally trust you, okay? But I just want to tell you about this fractal computing group. I've worked closely with them. I don't work closely with them anymore because they're too quick to report numbers to the public that are unverified. Mike Lindell hired him at my recommendation back in 2021, and we fired him right away afterwards. They don't have the right mentality. They're a marketing company. They're trying to sell a product. And so they come out with all this stuff all the time that they say, oh, look what we found here. Look what we found there. Nope. Check it out first. And one perfect example, just because I don't want to go too deep into it, is they said, oh, we have 22,000 people with the same phone number in the voter rolls in Wisconsin. Woohoo, woohoo. We found fraud. You know what it is? All they had to do was call the number. Guess what it is? It's the state penitentiary number. Okay. Okay. All right. But that made it onto the cover of the Epic Times before anybody called the number. My point is, we need to be far more careful about what we say in public.
Amen.
Don't go public with any claims until you've checked them out yourself. For example, I just talked about this Medicare stuff. I never talked about that in public until I checked it out for myself, because there are too many people out there that are promoting themselves and their own products and their own causes. They damage us in the long run because their claims are uncredible. And I'm telling you right now, they're very high on my suspicion list. Every time I see anything coming out of that group, all right, I'm not going to trust that. And I can tell you in multiple cases, it's not worked out very well. So anyway, I saw that there, and I don't want to be careful how I say it, because I'm not accusing anybody of doing anything illegal. I'm not accusing anybody of being evil. I'm just saying, be careful what you believe. Look into it first.
And if we're going to be the news now, I agree with Dr. Frank. Our standards of integrity are as high as they could possibly get, because we want people to trust it. Look, when we throw on Fox News, he and I are ultimately like, well, we know they've lied to us before. So how do we know what they're right? So at least, I'm not saying we're perfect, but at least if I put something out, a perfect example today, that graph that I showed with Vico's 3 different numbers.
Yeah.
I had put a version of it out without his stamp of approval and feedback. And it wasn't wrong. It just wasn't as accurate or well worded to reflect what he was trying to convey through his numbers. So I took it down. Like, that's just, I want to be known for something. Okay. You can at least believe that I'm not knowingly putting something out that I know is misleading or wrong or riddled with errors. And I think that's all you're saying there. So I agree. 100%.
I always encourage people, especially in the election integrity movement, to use peer review. We do that in science all the time. Before I publish a paper, I have 60 scientific publications. None of them ever got published until it went through multiple other eyeballs. And you mislabel a scale, you make a stupid error here, stupid error. Everybody makes mistakes. That's the way we are. And so it's better if you use your peers to review. So if you want to publish something, send it to me first. I love you. I'm gonna give you friendly criticism, but I'm gonna be hard on you on purpose because I'm your friend, and I don't want you to put something out in public that's not going to be. I want your credibility to increase, not diminish.
Amen. Got each other's back. That's for sure.
That's for
All
sure.
right. What do we have to do to wind down here, Joel? We've been on here. There's still people watching.
This White House believes strongly in the First Amendment.
I loved that.
So it's why our team will work diligently to restore the press passes of the 440 journalists whose passes were wrongly revoked by the previous administration.
Wrongly.
We're also opening up this briefing room to new media voices who produce news-related content and whose outlet is not already represented by one of the seats in this room.
I bet you could get one of these.
We welcome independent journalists, podcasters, social media influencers, and content creators to apply for credentials to cover this White House. And you can apply now on our new website, whitehouse.gov/new media. Starting today, this seat in the front of the room, which is usually occupied by the press secretary's staff, will be called the new media seat. My team will review the applications and give credentials to new media applicants who meet our criteria and pass United States Secret Service requirements to enter the White House complex. So in light of these announcements, our first questions for today's briefing will go to these new media members whose outlets, despite being some of the most viewed news websites in the country, have not been given seats in this room. And before I turn to questions, I do have news to...
That is how we fix the media issue. And you saw it all. So yesterday, I watched that last night. My husband sent it to me.
Me too.
Did you? I applied instantly. I haven't heard
anything. Good for you.
I did. So then Joel today hits my radar and I'm like, dude, already on it, applied for it. So if you are, thank you, all that to say, let me not forget to thank you to our donors, the people that have come alongside us and have given continuously over the last several years. Thank you, because part of when you donate are going to go towards, if you saw in the corner, all you have to do is apply, be a news related outfit, and then be willing to pay, enable your own travel to get to DC to be in the press briefing room. So if you are a donor of ours, one of the things your money will go towards potentially is if I get credential to go down there and you see me in that front row of the new media, thank you for helping me get there. And
you'll be flying into Reagan. So watch out for the helicopters.
Oh boy. Well, I'd drive probably. My husband and I drove to the inaugural ball there and back in the same day. So I'm only like a 4.5 hour drive.
Oh yeah, that's a drive. That's not a flight. Yeah. 4 hours is my limit. If it's more than 4, although I do drive up to Pittsburgh for you guys.
Well, 4 is mine as well. That's how far I can get without falling asleep at the wheel. 4 is mine. Yes.
Well, it's just not, it's a waste of time. You know, to fly somewhere, it takes you have to be there an hour and a half early. You got to drive there. And then it's like it ends up being 4 hours anyway. So you might as well just drive and save the money. But that's kind of if it's more than 4 hours to get there, then usually I'll get a plane.
Totally. So if you feel so compelled and you are not already a donor of ours, go to auditthevotepA.com/donations and consider giving either a one-time monetary gift, or I am giving out special for the first person to become a monthly donor who is not already giving after my live streams. Every week you are getting a free gift from our website. So throw that little plug in there as well. And thank you again so much to the people that have continued to give to us. You have helped us, kept fuel in the tank. With Dr. Frank being on the board, he's going to get to see some of the back end stuff. I am happy and proud to say that we were able to eliminate a lot of our yearly budget expenses because I started to understand the nonprofit sector. And there's a lot of services, for example, Canva. You can get Canva Pro for free if you are a nonprofit. And there's other things like that they give you discounts if you are nonprofit status. And I've kind of learned that over the last 6 months. So I was able to get a lot of our operating budget cost reduced for the upcoming year. So if you are giving to us already, your money will go even further. Thank you for that. What else, Joel? What else do we got to cover, Dr. Frank, before we just let these people go for the night? Is there anything?
I didn't talk a lot about Pennsylvania numbers. I showed you a couple of graphs. It was funny when I was at your celebration.
We will have you back for sure, though. I want to have you back.
And I can cover some of the numbers then. But when I was there at the celebration, you had Seth Kessel there too, and he knows me pretty well, and he gave me a good rib at the end. He said, because he knows I prepare a lot of slides. And I've got thousands and thousands of slides because after so many talks, you just have been. And yes, I've got like over here on my computer ready to show you if I need it. I've got about 50 slides. There's no way I was going to be able to show it. So I loved that ribbing. It just shows that he knows the kind of guy I am. I always have all my ducks in a row. I'm ready to go. That's just my personality. I don't like to go off half-cocked. So yes, I have a lot to talk about. I'd like to talk about how dirty your voter rolls are and the strategy that I've learned across the country that you need to do locally to take back control first of your voter rolls. You can do it. You can take back local control of your voter rolls, and there's a way to do it. It's getting late, so we don't want to go. But that would be a good thing to talk about that strategy to put it back in your own control. There's a way you can do it, and you're not breaking any laws. So with working within the framework of the law, you don't have to. You can take back local control. And just as a short answer to that is, the way you do it is the way it's already in law. The parties are actually responsible for the rolls. And the parties for years used to knock on the doors and maintain the rolls in the precincts, right? And so it's really the citizens' responsibility anyway. And so we just have to kind of reawaken to the fact that it's our job and it's the party's job, and we can take it away from the state, and we don't have to break any laws to do it. I can show you how. And this is a hard-won strategy, you know. So anyway, but it took longer than I meant to. But that would be worth a program to talk about and strategize on.
For sure. We'll be doing a lot more with Dr. Frank moving forward. So last couple things, I think you had a video with were we going to play that at the end, the video from your computer, or what was the plan with that we were going to do?
That was just me being ready. That was, you know, let's just play this one, the one that's God spared. Play that video.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason. And that reason was to save our country and to restore America to greatness. And now we are going to fulfill that mission together.
Yes.
I love that.
Me too. And I love it that he acknowledges that God spared his life, which I believe. But I think the most important word in that whole thing was the last word. We're going to fulfill that mission together. And in his inauguration in 2016, he said a phrase, and I could play that video too. I've collected these little snippets where he says, today is a special day because today we've given back the power to the people. Okay. In other words, he was handing back the power to us, and he was naive as well. And he was expecting, okay, we're going to take it back. No, we went all to the beaches and played golf, and we didn't step into our role as the government. Well, I hope that we are certainly a different country now than we were back then. We have learned a lot, and now we're stepping back into our roles, and we're getting involved just like you, me. There are tens of thousands of people like us that are waking up all around the country, and we are beginning to step back into our roles as the government. And so, and that confirms how we started the program. Trump cannot do this. He may be God's chosen person for our country, but he cannot make America great again. We have to make America great again. It's nice having a general up there who is leading the troops properly, but we're the army. We're the army. We have to deliver Normandy. I don't care how good the general is. The general can't take back Normandy. That has to be the troops, and we're the troops.
Amen. Dr. Frank, you're being peer reviewed by Ken, saying that it says county instead of country when it says, and that reason was to
no.
You have to fix that.
Where did you say that? Oh, county. Oh my gosh. Thank you for catching that. Oh my goodness. I need to fix that. Yes, I know.
Laura.
Yeah. Thank you for the peer review. See, now you know I'm human.
Now you know he's human. That was a perfect way to close it out. So as you guys know, my usual is to do a couple funny things. Joe has two funny things. RFK Jr.'s confirmation today. He was attacked.
Just want to ask some questions. And yet the organization is making money selling a child's product to parents for $26, which casts fundamental doubt on your usefulness.
That's awesome.
Isn't that like, I don't know how he did it. I really don't.
I do. I know exactly how to do that with my software editing. I can do that.
Well, I meant how RFK put up with that. That was
I see. Yeah. I thought you were talking technical.
No, not technical. I know. Mel felt so bad for him. Totally. And then the last little one is Family Guy. This is how I feel every night going to bed. So play that one, Joel, and then we'll sign off.
Good.
Isn't that great? Oh my gosh. We'll answer a couple things in the chat. Sharon, yes, Indiana County does not post. We could talk about the Constitution. Now, it is Act 77 does not require it any longer for them to post those polling tapes, and we'll get arguments back and forth a lot on that locally. I would suggest getting something like that ironed out at the local level prior to election day. Make a stink about it. Sit down with your election director, the county party, whatever it is, get those things agreed upon and ironed out, especially if you can get bipartisan support on that. You might be able to get some independents and Democrats that when you be surprised, Dr. Frank's probably learned this too. When you get someone who's not of the same political party or not deemed an election denier to go with you to your local office, you are going to get way further, because now if you get people on two different sides that want the same thing, they can't just, they're less likely to just dismiss you. So, and those are things that we're going to be strategizing with at the local level and talking to all you guys about. So stay tuned. Final thoughts, Dr. Frank, and then we'll say goodnight. Anything else?
Yeah, I'll be sentimental for a minute. Another lesson that I've learned on the road is that movements are about relationships. We like to think that we win with evidence. We like to think that we can win in court. We like to think that we win with laws, but I've learned that's not true. We win with relationships. And, if you think about Jesus Christ and the movement that he started, he didn't send emails. He went town to town, starting relationships and building relationships. And I really think, and you can look at church building, you can look at all kinds of different movements that have been successful across history. It's not about necessarily the issue they're fighting. It's about the relationships. And so I so appreciate yours and my relationship. And we're not alone. We've got another several hundred people that we could have the same conversation with, that we're brothers and sisters now. So it's a sentimental ending, but I think it's also, we're talking about what it's going to take back our country. If you think about if this were 100 years ago and you were deciding that you were going to go represent me at the state legislature, somebody would have to harvest your crop for you. So your neighbors would step up and take care of it for you. And then you'd come back and it would be their turn and we'd harvest their crop. Okay. It was about relationships. We worked together. And so that's another really big thing that I don't want to underestimate that. It's more valuable than I would like to admit. I'm a scientist. I'd like to say, here's the evidence, here's the science, but no, it matters that that we're friends. That's good.
Amen. Amen. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. We're going to have some really good guests too. And Dr. Frank back. Absolutely. We'll have Seth Keschel back for sure as well. I'm going to be interviewing some January 6ers. So Colton and Sarah. Colton is home with Sarah Maccabee finally. I was texting with her this week, so we're going to get them on the program soon. I'd really like to highlight some of these January 6ers. I think exposing what was done to them, oh my gosh, will help us make sure we get people awakened enough to not let this, we can't let this happen again. I watched Enrique Tarrio interviewed on the Steven Crowder show, and it's just gut wrenching. If you look up the Wikipedia on that guy, they make him sound like a complete right-wing, crazy Nazi lunatic. But when you listen to him talk, he sounds like a very sensible, normal guy. And yet what he has put through is just horrible. So I'm going to try to get as many J6ers as possible on here and let them share their story. Wonderful. And move forward so we can stop something like that from ever happening again. But you are all very welcome. We'll sign off, and everybody have a good week. We'll see you next Wednesday night. Over and out.